Hi, and welcome to the Raw Heart and Soul podcast. Today I have with me Zenith Virago. Zenith, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I've done the intro prior to this, but tell us about yourself in your own words.
Well, I've been very busy having a great life, and most of that has been in Byron Bay and the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. I came here as a young 26-year-old, and I discovered what it meant to be a hippie, and that was very beneficial for me. I really embraced a much more closer to nature lifestyle, and of course I swim every day in the ocean, and that's been an incredible gift, especially for my work, to be able to do that. And so really, I would say my life is very simple but very rich.
What did you do prior to coming to Australia? Because you were in New Zealand prior to Australia, is that correct?
Yeah, I grew up in England. I lived there till I was 24. I was married at 17. I had 2 children. I was to a guy that I'd been with since I was 14, a really nice guy. And we decided that our time together was complete. And so we had one very clear conversation about that. And he decided he would keep the children, and I decided I would leave for a year and go around the world and see what happened. And I left. They all came to wave me off at the station in London, and I didn't return for 15 years. And I didn't see them all again until they were, my sons were 21 and 19, and I didn't see them again until that age. And in fact, their father, who, because we didn't have any dispute, I didn't see him for 30 years. It's a big story in one question.
It is a big story in one question. I don't expect you to answer it straight up, because that's not the point of this whole podcast, but I'm just setting the stage, because I came across you about a month or so ago and I think it was a replay of the documentary Laura's Choice, and you were interviewed on that. And what piqued my interest was the fact that you were speaking about being, do you describe it as being a death walker?
Yes, I've spent the last 25 years working with death and dying and bereavement here in Surrounds, but now probably for the last 8 years I've spent most of my time teaching about those subjects. So sharing that body of knowledge and that body of wisdom now as an elder, in the hope that other people who are looking to do death well and towards a healthier bereavement will be able to take that, add it to their existing skills or life experience, adapt it to their professional role, whatever that might be, and then be that person in their community or in their organization. And that's been going very well. And it seems to be, I would say, as the role of an elder, like once you get old, which I feel it's a great privilege to get old, because of course I'm bearing children and young people who don't get to live a life and be able to look back on a life well lived, and now be able to share that experience and dance with everyone that comes to those workshops and see how enlightening it is for them to get very frank, practical experience rather than someone trying to sell them something. And you could talk to anybody, I'm sure, that's done those workshops, and they would give you a story about how it's enhanced their life and hopefully their death.
So what is a death walker in your words?
Well, in my words, I mean, we're all death walkers because we're all walking towards our own death. And we see it as someone who is walking towards their own death the very best and the most courageously they can, whilst assisting others with their experience and their willingness and their guidance. And, because there's a lot of talk now in the press and media about death doulas. But when I started that work, the word doula, even though it was a word, it wasn't in common usage at all. And the nearest word that people would tag to me would be, "Oh, you're a midwife to the dying." And I would say, no, that doesn't feel, with full respect to midwives, that doesn't feel right to me. And then after several years, I just thought, well, what am I doing? I'm walking with them in their journey. I'm accompanying them in their journey. So I'm accompanying the dying person until they die, but I continue to accompany the family and friends on into the ceremony and often into bereavement, because we live in a small community and I see those people all the time, you know, at parties, at the supermarket, the farmer's market, at the beach. Yeah. And I see the benefit of having guidance in order to be able to consider what your options are and then make decisions that are right for you, to make that experience much more beneficial in the moment for the dying person and the people accompanying them. But also what I see then is people's bereavement is much easier. It's much, because when they look back, they are sad about the death. They can't change the circumstances of the death, especially if it's sudden and shocking. But if they've been able to do that dying the best they can, if someone's got an expected death, and then they are participating at every stage of that process, then when they look back on it, they'll say, yeah, but we gave them the best send off we could. And, you know, I wouldn't change any of that. And when you experience that from someone who is, you know, healthy and well and bereaved, it's an incredible experience, rather than someone who has lots of regrets or felt that they got ripped off or wished they'd known something
or done
about
something differently.
You know, either keeping the body at home, building their own coffin, any of those sorts of steps in that journey that you can just do yourself. And they all give people a sense of achievement and a sense of accomplishment, but also they honor the person that they loved. And especially for men, I think, who are driven by honor as a quality. So, for example, if women don't speak at a funeral, they will just say, oh, I was too emotional, I couldn't speak at my mum's funeral. And they won't feel too bad about that. They might have
because
a little
it's kind of accepted by society
just,
that's normal.
Yeah, that's okay. But for men, my experience is if they do not get up and speak at the funeral, they will regret that. And they will often give themselves a hard time, in their words, that I wasn't man enough to do that. And so a part of my role is to really, you know, do whatever it takes with those guys, young men, old men, middle men, to get them to stand there, not be bothered about crying. You know, it's one of the most courageous things a man can do, is cry at the funeral for someone he loves, especially a young boy for his mother, or an old man for his daughter. And not give a shit about that, but, you know, be the very best they can. And I mean, women don't worry about crying in public, but for men, you know, it's been so conditioned out of them. And I see the benefit of that for those men. And so death's taught me lots about lots of things, but a lot about gender responses.
It's really interesting, because I wasn't expecting you to go down that path, because I hadn't actually considered that side of things. But that's a huge area of empowerment for men, like to be able to give them the space to grieve the way they want to, but also to honor the way they want to too. How much of what you have learnt, oops, sorry, I lost you then.
No, it's good.
Okay. How much of what you have learnt and what you practice with people in this work comes from traditional societies, so First Nations people, for example, in Australia?
So I'm totally honouring of First Nations peoples in all over the world. And, you know, my understanding of many of those cultures was that there was someone who always held the birth knowledge and someone who held the death knowledge. And sometimes that would be the same person, but sometimes it would be different. And that knowledge was passed on, and it grew and it grew and it grew in order to benefit those people. Mm. But I would say I haven't taken anything from anybody, because of course now you've got there's a whole body of work about cultural appropriation. But I certainly don't need to worry about that, because I haven't, you know, modeled what we do on anybody else. I just really was living here. Someone died, a close friend of mine. We wanted to do it ourselves, and we created something for her, which included doing all the funeral director role, the legal paperwork, the transport, taking the body home, washing and dressing it, not actually giving her to a stranger. And that worked really well for us as a group of friends and family. And it just went from there. But, you know, there's nothing, it's more a contemporary hybrid, because of course what we are doing is a traditional role. How it was before the funeral industry took charge of it and closed it all down and made it very secretive
and commercial.
And there we know what's best, and commercial, profit driven, and you know, and dominated by men. Whereas I would hazard a guess that work was always done by women with some men. And you know, someone has shown me articles about that it was actually the role of, in some cultures, of two-spirit people, of queer people, to do, because they were seen to be, you know, treading some sort of cross line between male and female, and also life and death. And that works for me. I'm a lesbian, so it's been great. But I'm also, you know, a mother who delivered a baby at home. Wow. With friends present. And so it's really just a continuation of that reclaiming of one of our major life passages or rites of passage, and just doing that in a way that works for each family, and what their beliefs are, what their cultural practices are. But it brings no dogma, it brings no religion, it brings no anything from other First Nations people. It's very just very simple.
Is it very much based on, like you just said, what the family and what the person who's passing wants to do, if they've got a say in that? And what's the percentage of people that you get coming to you whose loved one has passed and they want to honor them in a way that's specific to them and to their family, versus the person who is knowing that they're going to pass away? Like, do you get an equal balance between those?
It's probably about 60-40. I mean, particularly in this area, because I've been doing this for so long, and it's now part of our lifestyle. You know, we have a death style. So for every one person that comes to a funeral, let's say there's 200 people there, and they walk away from that funeral feeling better than they did before they came, and they feel that they've honored that person, they've celebrated their relationship to that person, a range of purposes that a good funeral serves. Then they you know, they will think, oh, I'm going to have a chat with her, I'm going to get myself sorted. And so sometimes people are perfectly well, but they want to know what their options are. And then sometimes people are dying, and generally what I see is when a lot of people try treatment to stay alive when they're diagnosed with something, or they're old and they're dying.
Declining, yep.
And they decide to put the same amount of energy into their death as they have to their living. So they will make inquiries, they will make plans, they will talk to their families about what they want and what's good for the family, what they want. And there will be a conversation, and sometimes everyone's sitting at the table and we do that together, because sometimes, as you probably know, to have a stranger there or a professional can assist things coming out that might not come out in their normal established relationship that they've had for
kind
50
of like
years.
a mediator.
And especially with, well, I would say a facilitator or a guide, but it's not usually a hassle.
Yeah.
It's more that the power dynamic or the respect dynamic is sort of shifting. And so people can speak to me, but the other people can hear what they're saying.
So they feel more free to
And
express what they really
I
feel.
can draw that out of them,
Yeah.
whilst the others got someone, probably like in your role, where you've got a body of experience, you've got skills, you've seen it before, you know, you used to working with lots of people, knowing that everyone's different and they all bring their personality to that, they bring their life experience, and you can see the family dynamic of someone who never speaks up or someone who, you know, takes all the space and demands everything. And so it's about giving everybody a go and just shutting some people down and lifting some people up. And, you know, it's fun to do that for a family because the payoff is so great for them, just like you do. Yeah. I'm sure.
How, and we spoke about this briefly, but how much does religion not stop, but how much does it cause fear amongst people in terms of how they think about death and dying?
Well, I think religion can be a blessing or a curse, but it is, of course, just a set of beliefs. And sometimes those beliefs are, you know, a help. And so some people have a trust in what's going to happen and what they think will come afterwards. But some people can be terrified, because even if they have a strong faith, because they've got a fear of their God, or they feel they might be judged for something that they've done, maybe that they did when they were young, that they've kept a secret. Because you never really know what's happening for someone else unless they tell you. Yeah. So, and in order to do that, they have to be able to be in touch with it, articulate it on the inside, and then be able to express it either in writing or verbally, or maybe in a picture with art therapy. But of course, I don't deal with many people who have strong faiths, because they go to the clergy to deal with their dying, because they feel that the priest or the clergy, for whatever faith they belong to, will be of assistance to them. But often people are lapsed in some way, or the family don't want to have that sort of experience because the person never really followed that faith. But sometimes people get, we have to go back into it, even though they haven't been in it for anything to do with it for years and years.
Yeah. Do you get
but it's a strong, it's strong cultural conditioning.
Yeah.
For people.
I was going to say, do you get that? Like, if you have someone come to you who is preparing for their own death and they have family members around them who are resistant to the path that they want to take because of, they think that should be done a certain way and down the normal traditional route of going through, like through their clergy, for example, or preparing it, like paying off your funeral before you even have it. Like, do you have that conflict come up?
I sort of do and I don't, because most of the people that are choosing to talk to me or will, you know, use me as a celebrant or as a death walker are trying to do the best for themselves and for their families. And so I normally find that if we sit at the kitchen table or we're sitting at the bedside, we can normally negotiate something that works for everyone. And if someone else is stuck on it, sometimes they won't come. But you know, that's a pretty strong stand, not to come to a funeral in a beautiful place you know, in God's own nature for people that believe in God.
Yeah.
To miss out and disrespect someone for your beliefs. Whereas part of what I'm saying at the ceremony is, you know, this is a ceremony that respects all faiths and beliefs, and we trust that your beliefs will support you at this time.
Beautiful words. Are you there at their passing if that is their request?
No, because most of my work is about empowering the family to be there and do it themselves, and to feel confident and capable and courageous enough. And generally that's by the time they get there, that's very much the next step in a continuum of care that they have provided. And I actually have a life, and you know, death can come at any time. And so I don't see that. Of course, if it was a friend or someone desperately wanted me, because people's families or friends are, you know, are right there for them, and it's a very intimate, very intimate personal experience. And you know, families and friends are very capable. Like, unless you need a doctor for some pain relief or a medical procedure, no medical staff need to be there.
Yeah.
Or anybody.
I guess if you've done your job, or if you've done what they've come to you in the first place for, then they're already at the point where they're comfortable with that, and they don't need you to hold their hand passing over.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's a job well done.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one of the best celebrations that you've been to or witnessed?
Oh my God. You know, they're all different in their own right, but I think, you know, which may elaborate a bit more on the point about men, but a mother was dying. They all came to see me. She had 2 sons. They all came to the kitchen table. There were about 18 people there. We had a whole conversation. She was really guiding everybody through that, and then eventually she died. And I saw the sons, and one was very young and quiet. And so I said, look, you know, you don't need to speak. If it's too much for you, you don't even worry about it. But just write your mum a letter and say to her everything that you would say if you were standing up. And then we'll put that in with her, and I will explain to everybody what you've done. The other young man was in the Navy. I think he was about 23, and he'd promised his mum he would come in his beautiful Navy uniform. And I have to say, I'm not into the military services at all, but I totally honor his choice and his work. And he came that day, and I said, how are you feeling? And he said, oh, I'm a bit teary. I'm not sure how I'm going to go. And I just looked at him. I said, you know what? One of the most courageous things a young man can do is cry at the funeral for his mother, who he loves, and not apologize for that. And so when he got up, he stood up and he started to cry, and then he looked up and he went like this. And of course, all the women friends, everyone was crying, because he looked so, you know, as a young man, he looked so proud and beautiful in the uniform, and as a you know, grieving son. And he did not say he was sorry for crying.
That's awesome.
And then he proceeded to talk, and it was beautiful. And so for me, it's not so much about how it looks or what the trimmings are. It's about the quality of what happens for the people who are most affected by that death, and their sense of participation, their sense of satisfaction, their sense of achievement at the end of that. And then they both went in the car they drove her themselves in the car, because they had originally said they wouldn't, because they thought it was too much, but they felt so empowered by the ceremony that they weren't going to then they were going to do the last
bit. That was their job.
Drive her themselves. Yeah. And, it's humbling. It's so humbling to see what people are capable of when in probably, one of the hardest days of their lives.
Yeah. Brings out the best in people, doesn't it?
It can. It can. But it can also bring out the worst.
Yeah. That was going to be one of my next questions. Do you get not that in that exact way though, do you get much resistance from like funeral directors and traditional homes, or the medical establishment for that matter, about the work that you do?
I haven't really, in the big scheme of things, but of course for someone like me, my personality loves to challenge the system, and it loves to buck that. And so I found quite quickly, but I also had a background in law, so I very quickly took a position which was, well, you show me the legislation that says I can't do that, and I won't. But otherwise, I will be coming to collect that body, because it's really useful to know that there's a difference between a policy and a law. So a policy is just the way they want to do things and the way they propose to do things, but it's not a law, where obviously you cannot break a law. And so that became very clear, but quite quickly in this area and beyond, because they're all people like us working in that system. And those people were at the funerals and they could see the benefit of that experience. And so they then became very helpful. So, the registrar at the court, the nurses on ward, and, they became very helpful. And, sometimes I'm marrying at the same time, I'm marrying the children of some of those medical people, because we're a working community and we're working, and, those rites of passage are important to us. And so people come to a funeral often say, oh, I want you to marry us. We've been to lots of your funerals and we really love, what you create. And so, because the priests, for example, and clergy have always had that domain, but like we all know that the highest percentage of people are now being married by celebrants, because they don't want that dogma. They want to celebrate love.
That's right.
Not God.
Yes. And ultimately, we do know that women were the priestesses a long time ago before the men were.
Yeah. And, and it would be great to live in a world where, there was respect for everybody, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of race, but with a respect for difference and an appreciation of that, not like a whitewash or a greenwash to that, or a rainbow wash, whatever you want to call it.
And a celebration of that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around voluntary assisted death?
I think everyone has the right to die whenever they want. And that's a very challenging position for lots of people. So, especially for people who are suffering, who, because they would normally have died if they had not had medical intervention. And then they're just choosing not to have more medical intervention. And so what happens here sometimes is people choose to die by just stopping eating and drinking, especially if they're elderly or frail, and they just want to go quietly. They want to sleep a lot. They want their body to close down. They want whatever they believe in to prepare to leave the body, because the majority of people believe that when they die, something leaves the body. And that's very comforting to them and to the people who are accompanying them. And I just came from a funeral, a celebration yesterday for a young man, 52, who just killed himself. Very loved, very popular, very a whole lot of things. But as I say, you never know what's happening, and no one really wants people that they love to be suffering. And it's not usually the object of their action is to end, it's usually to end their own suffering, not to create suffering for others. And so it's up to the people who are left behind to do their work, which is to accept people's choices, whether that's a planned death or a sudden death. So even though you're sad and you miss them and you love them and you wish it was something different, if they are dead, then the best thing you can do is not be full of regret, not be full of wishing you could have done something, but wishing them well and starting to soothe your own pain and your own suffering, and do the work with that so that their suffering doesn't pass to you, because I'm sure that's not what anybody would want to do, or unless they hated you and they want you to suffer and they did something out of spite, which of course is often the case.
That would be very rare.
Or not often, but
yeah, I was going to say that would be very rare, wouldn't it? That because most of the time people who are taking their own lives like that are because they can, like, because they think that they are creating so much suffering and pain for the people around them, and for themselves, but they actually a lot of the time will do it because they think that will make lives better for everybody around them.
Well, I don't know that, because I can't hazard a guess what's inside most people's minds who kill themselves, because I think it's a range of things. But I certainly don't feel that they're all mentally ill, which is what a mainstream approach is, that you have to be mentally ill or challenged. And especially for young people, I mean, it's very hard when young people kill themselves, because as people who have lived a long life, we know that sometimes things seem insurmountable. And sometimes they get better, but sometimes they get worse. But also some people have been very damaged from childhood, and it's just too hard for them. It's just too hard. And I have to say, the more I've worked in this field, because I didn't grow up with any religion, so I didn't have any guidance in that, but I've really, really fallen in love with the mystery, and that has made it very I wouldn't say, what would I say? It's made it much easier to travel that journey in all sets of circumstances where people feel that someone died too young, where people feel it was unfair, where people feel that, they were the happiest they'd been for a long time, or they'd survived something terrible and then they were killed in an accident. But it's a mystery, and no one knows what happens after death. No one knows what the purpose of the meaning of life is. But what I feel my life is to live the very best I can, to become the best person I can be, to be of benefit to others, and then to share that learned experience on with others, because I believe that's of benefit, because it's a body of knowledge that I'm passing on.
Do you think that is what your purpose is?
No, I think my purpose is to live the best life I can live, and to become the best person I can be, whatever that looks like for each individual person. Because some people, and I don't know if that's everyone's purpose, but that's what my life teaches me. But you don't actually, you don't have to be big and achieve something. Like a lot of people who are big and have achieved terrible things. There's statues, as we know, like 99% of the statues in the world are of men. Lots of those are white, powerful, profit-driven men
who have done some horrible things,
have made money. That's right. And then living with some remorse, or finally someone talked them into giving some of that money away to do something better for people, and they founded education facilities or medical facilities or something like that. But it's the quiet people, it's the people that don't destroy the planet. It's the people who are just helping other people cross the road, or youth workers, or welfare workers, community workers, anybody who's just trying to do the best they can and assist people in their sphere, and not cause any harm, as best they can. I think, I don't know what the meaning of life is, but I know that my purpose is just to become the best person I can be. And it's going very well so far.
You mentioned before that you're an educator. You don't do much of the work yourself anymore on the ground, unless it's for a friend or someone that you know. But do you, like, what do you see bringing people in? Do you want to clarify something there?
Well, I spend a lot of time talking to people who stop me in the street or ring me up or Zoom in. And so I'm still working in that way, but because I travel a lot to teach, I'm often not here to be able to do the funeral. But if I am, I do it. Or if so, I still talk to dying people all the time, but I just do it on the phone because I'm often somewhere else.
Right. Who are you? How do people come to you? Like, how do you learn to become a death walker? Like, where do you even start to look for that education, if that's what you're educating people in?
Well, I think a lot of people, I have a small charity called the Natural Death Care Centre, because it was important to me to work out of an institution that had credibility, where integrity was at the core of that work. So I didn't want to just set up a business. So I work out the death center. The death center does a range of things for people, and is an organization that people can find, and so often I'm referring on. So yesterday, for example, I put on a death and dying day, an information day in Mullumbimby, in the big civic hall there. I invited lots of services to come. They all had information tables. The community came, the public came, and we had speakers, and it was an incredibly informative day. And I asked everyone if they thought it would be worthwhile doing once a year, and everybody was really in favor of that, because of course some people have to warm up to death. So it may take a few years they might hear about it, but it takes them a couple of years to get there, because they have to prepare themselves for that. But so for us, people find us, people just find it on the website, because now people are looking for death information, or they feel they have a calling, or death is calling them, and they are looking to answer some of those questions. And so, and fortunately now, because I've been doing that work for so long, and I'm doing lots of podcasts like this for other people, so people who are listening to you won't necessarily be looking for death. Death is going to come calling to them. And so they'll think, oh, I never thought about that before, and they'll check it out. Or they'll say, oh, I don't want to talk about that, and they won't. But more and more people are deciding they want to know what their rights are. They want to know what their options are. They want to be able to participate. And the starting point for most people is whether they want to be buried or cremated, and what the music is for their funeral.
Yeah.
And that's a good discussion point.
I have a do you know what Spotify is? Yeah, so I have a playlist in my Spotify of songs for my wake and for my funeral already set up.
Great. And you'll be in good company.
I have I lost my first husband 16 years ago, almost 16 years ago now, to cancer. And we didn't have a list of songs that he wanted. We didn't really know what he wanted. He passed away as a result of melanoma cancer. So he kind of didn't accept that he was actually dying until the last 2 weeks that he was, or that he didn't verbalize that. So I think I learned a lot from that. And I learned that I want to be prepared, but I also want the people around me to know and understand what I want, because knowing that I went through that, not knowing what he really wanted, and kind of doubting that, not doubting, but some of the songs, one of the songs that I played at his funeral was completely for me. And I know that he probably wouldn't have wanted it, but I wanted it for me. So I want everyone to know what I want. And I want inclusion in that as well. So I want people who love me and who are close to me to have some, not ownership, but have some say in what goes on. Some input, some celebration, so that it celebrates my life with them as well.
Yeah.
So where can people find, like, because I know that you're in northern New South Wales, but have you got contacts and referrals that you refer out to throughout all of Australia for people who do this?
Yeah, so I'm traveling all over. Like, I'm just about to go to Perth in 2 weeks' time to do 3 trainings there. And we then have a directory on the website where people who have done the training can then be listed, whether they're celebrants, death walkers, if they have a cold bed, if they offer death cafes, if they are part of a threshold choir, anything like that, anything that people might find useful.
Jeepers, you've just listed 4 things I hadn't thought about. That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah, that's
great.
That's really cool, because I wanted, my favorite band, Eskimo Joe, I wanted them to play at my funeral, but I know that they'll probably pass around the same time, or if not close to my death anyway. But knowing that there's a choir service that could come and sing their songs would be awesome.
Well, the threshold choir is something quite unique. So they come and sing to dying people. They don't come to the funeral, but they sing. And in fact, they came to the information day, and at the end of it, they made me sit or lay in a reclining seat, and like business class on the plane. And then they all sat around and sang, and they sing at a certain frequency, which is very similar to a harp, the same sort of frequency as harp music, which touches you somewhere deep and somewhere that most music doesn't. And I mean, I'm very calm. My nervous system is very regulated. But it was a tiny bit frantic, because we'd finished the day with huge success. Everybody was saying thank you and leaving. And then they said, come and sit in the chair. And as soon as they started singing, I felt that tiny little bit drop back, just like thump, really calm, really quickly. And it's an incredible gift they give to people. But there'll be a local band in your area, I'm sure,
play my song.
Sing Eskimo Joe, who I've never heard of. But anyway,
you'll have to look them up. They're obviously tapping into the certain chakras and energy systems of the body to be able to do that.
Yeah, I imagine so. I'm not a singer by any means.
I think I've got 2 more questions for you. You mentioned in an email to me earlier this week, late last week, that you're writing a TED Talk. What's the topic of your TED Talk?
Well, it's about being a death walker, but I'm much better in a conversation. So I do a lot of public talking, and obviously I do a lot of teaching, but I'm really dancing and responding to people, because all of my work is with people, and most of it is spoken word, either quietly at the bedside, at the kitchen table, or in ceremony, or in public talks. And I'm still working. I've done my 3rd draft, and I'm about to deliver it tonight to the other speakers, and we're just all, working, supporting each other by commenting on that. But
out of your comfort zone, Zenith?
No, I'm not out of my comfort zone at all. Because when someone asks me a question, I can answer that, and your need to ask that question, I can give you the answer and elaborate a bit. But so I'm much better when someone's asking me a question, because there's clearly a need for that information, rather than trying to cram 25 years worth of experience and knowledge into a 12-minute segment that just goes blah. is that's a challenge.
That's the challenge. I look forward to hearing it when it comes out or when you do it.
Thanks.
My last question is, do you have your funeral planned?
I don't.
You don't?
Because I've got all the legal paperwork organized, but I'm not that much of a control freak, and I just feel that I haven't spent 25 years macheting on religious funerals for my friends not to be able to get that together on their own. And I'm pretty simple, and I'm also very outspoken, and so it'll be very easy for them to do it. But what I have completed for their benefit is, and I've shared that with them already, is a death plan, which is what we have available on our website, the Natural Death Care Centre, which covers that whole journey and all the things you might want to think about and the choices you might want to make there. And it can be, I put it together because people were saying, I really want to talk to my parents about it, but they don't want to talk. And I said, well, it's their right not to talk about it if they don't want to. It's a very personal experience. But they were concerned, the young people were concerned that the parents wouldn't have the paperwork in place. And so this is the soft intro to try and encourage them to fill out the advanced healthcare plan, power of attorney, make a will, enduring guardian, whatever is relevant in their state. But it's a great stocking filler to sit around and do together as a dinner party. And I've done that with many groups of friends, and it's real. And couples often do it. They do it separately and then discuss it, and they'll say, wow, I never knew you felt like that, because people really consider it, because it's designed to take you on that journey and take you really deep without it looking like that.
Yeah, and
it's
brings
fun.
some humor and love to a ceremony and to a journey that shouldn't be done behind closed doors after someone's passed away. Like, it brings humanity back.
But I mean, some deaths are very sad. Yeah, I mean, when people die suddenly, either because they choose to kill themselves, or they're killed in an accident, or even by violence, or by a larger incident, like a plane accident or something like that, then filling in that form and having a starting point like you've got to give to your family is, people love to honor someone's wishes and include in what they need. But if they've got no idea, I see families who are floundering about what that person would want. They just don't know where to start. And sometimes it's as simple as, I want this piece of music, I want to be buried, or I want to be cremated, I want people to decorate my coffin, I want to be wearing this outfit. And that things like that can be a great help to people who are trying to organize something suddenly when they are feeling all their emotions of loss and sorrow and sadness and shock and all of that. A little bit, it's like having a mud map to get you where you need to go. It's better than no map at all. And even if people have given you, you know what it's like when you ask the way somewhere and someone says, well, you go down there and you turn left and you do this and you do that, and you're not even listening, you forget it. Whereas if it's written down, people often, they know it's absolute because they've got it in that person's writing.
Is that the best, or what's the best thing about the role that you play, or the job that you do? Would you say that is it, that knowing that you're fulfilling someone's wishes?
God, I don't know what the best thing is. Well, I would just say this year I was made Byron Citizen of the Year.
I saw that.
And that's,
congratulations.
Thanks. That's a great honor in
it is an honor.
Such a wacky community as Byron. But I think the greatest thing is to have brought death into the light in a way, and into the park, and you know, onto the beachfront, and into the garden, and into the public awareness more. And that's been, you know, a very, and to have made such a lot of difference for such a lot of people in such a simple way, but in such a profound way. And I feel very fortunate. This certainly wasn't what I was expecting to be doing with my life, I can tell you. But I'm very glad that that's how things have panned out.
It's beautiful. Thank you very much for being here today with me, Zenith.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for asking.